working in the lab and leading field trips. Because of my knowledge of the area and the environment, I took students out into the field to teach them things that I have already learned then. And one of the things that was very traumatic for me back then, if you remember, I moved to Lewisburg 3 months after March 1979. March 28, 1979. Why is that an important date?
3 Mile Island.
Excellent, excellent. So I moved to Lewisburg, and that was my introduction into energy. I didn't know anything from college about nuclear energy. I learned pretty quickly about it. And then I became an energy activist, and I worked in programs and a job for 5 years where I did energy audits. My goal is making things more efficient and solving problems. So for 5 years, I did about 3,000 energy audits in a 10-county area for an agency called CEDACOG. And then I
Were
went
these residential or commercial?
mostly commercial. Mostly the residential was apartment buildings.
Okay.
And it was easy stuff.
Okay,
Thermostats.
non-industrial.
A little bit. And they were simple audits. And so that's been my life and career. And then for a year, I worked in the private sector doing the same thing, but with now bigger industries, hospitals, big energy users, cogeneration, energy efficiency programs, things like that. That didn't last long, and I was laid off in 1987, and that's when I decided to go to work for myself. This was my logic. Tell me if it makes sense. I figured if I worked for myself, I'd be less likely to be laid off. And you know what? It worked. However, in that 2008 George Bush recession, I almost laid myself off. Went through some personal difficulties, going through a divorce. You know, we all have those issues. And so, as I joked with some people, Mike was down, but he came back up, and I think that I came back up for the better. And actually, I think I'm going to be able to, work with Republicans. For instance, I'd really love to meet Charlie Dent, one of the best moderate Republicans in Pennsylvania. And the other story is, you're not going to believe this, but I even have my ex-wife passing out brochures. Now, if I can do that,
Are you sure it's not because she just wants to get you out of town?
you know what? That was my next leg. You beat me to it.
Okay,
So anyway, so what my profession? Here's what I've been doing for about 30 years. I clean up contaminated properties. I do brownfields. What's a brownfield? When you have an old industrial site that people abandon or don't want to purchase because there might be environmental risk and liability, what we do in my company and subcontractors, we first investigate the property to see what the risks are, if they're really there. And then when we find them, we correct them and remediate them. Like what kind? Underground petroleum tanks. It's the worst thing. Old ones there, they're leaking. So I put together the crews to remove them. I do the soil sampling. I work with the seller. I work with the buyer. I work with DEP. And then we resolve those issues. Now a new buyer can come in and purchase that without that risk and liability. And then we can redevelop the property into a new use, hence the term brownfield redevelopment. It's also known as land recycling. So that's what I've been doing for 30 years, solving problems, helping people with real estate transactions. That's about me. Any questions or any comments or concerns that you guys
what's the
have?
name of your company?
It is my name.
Oh,
So it's Molisevich Environmental LLC.
Your involvement also was, you had some political involvement. You were mayor?
I was,
Is that what I read?
yes, I was the mayor of Lewisburg for 4 years. That was about in the mid-90s.
Were you also a councilman?
I was also 8 years on the Lewisburg Borough
I
Council.
read your other thing. I'm just trying to get over
Yeah, that's fine. Good lead
But-
points. Yes.
And that experience prepared you for this experience how?
Well, that's a good question. Let me just ponder that a little bit. When I look at, the current congressman's knowledge of issues, his voting record, and the people that he hangs out with and endorses, I think I'm overqualified compared to him.
How much qualification do you really need to get a 14% approval rating?
There you go. Good point.
Right. One of the things I'm wondering about is because I think Tom Marino is going to come at you. He's going to say that you're a big government guy who wants to overregulate,
Right, right.
and you're going to put farmers out of business. How are you going to counter that?
Let me see how this sounds. Who has seen the bald eagles come back? Anybody ever seen the bald eagles?
Yes,
come back?
there's a great one you can go view
All right, all
4
right.
miles from.
Who has not yet seen a bald eagle in life along one of the creeks or rivers? Anybody not seen them? Would you like to?
If it were there, yeah.
Sure. Was it very exciting?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
The
yeah.
first time you saw it?
Yeah, it was very.
All right. We almost destroyed the species. Now, how did we get it back? We got it back by regulation because we banned DDT. Now, if Mr. Marino wants to get rid of the regulation that eliminated DDT, and if he doesn't like the American eagle as our symbol of freedom, I'd like to talk to him. So, there's good regulations, and there's some regulations. I've always been a proponent on when we used to do energy work and energy studies and audits. Energy prices go up, energy prices go down. Technology changes. Every once in a while, you need to go to the shelf, pull the regulations off the shelf, and let's reevaluate them. Just like an energy audit. If you did an energy audit years ago, the recommendations 10 years ago may not have been applicable, but if the prices go up, it may be applicable now. The price of solar energy has come down as far as installation. It may not have been applicable 10 years ago, but when you redo the numbers, now it makes sense. So every regulation needs to be reevaluated, and that's where I'm more moderate. My main theme in this is going to be moderation. Who can argue with that? Moderation rather than extremism. And I'm not going to go to Congress to shut it down. Duh. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The most effective regulations that we have over industry in the United States are not those that sunset, because then corporations only have to delay investment, and most of them are associated with environmental. The most effective ones are ones that are written where the review is periodic.
Right.
And what that review does is modernize because the terms have changed.
Right.
Or the technology has changed, or the problem has changed, or we understand differently the interaction. Gee, maybe we didn't know there were health effects, and now we know there are health effects. Or maybe we thought there were health effects, and we found out there were secondary health effects from something else.
Right,
But
right.
my point is what I believe needs to be articulated to people is regulation in itself is always well-intentioned. Regulations that aren't reviewed as in a planned way on a periodic basis will become cumbersome.
Sure.
And I think that acknowledges what I think probably every Republican is worried about, but they never understand that regulation is actually good.
Right.
When it's bad is when it becomes burdensome for the sake of being burdensome.
Right.
So
Well said.
review is required.
Exactly.
Sunsetting is very dangerous because a lot of times,
Because it's automatic.
special interests now control
Right.
it. You don't want that. You want special interests removed. Review is good because it's usually a high-level scientific review,
Sure.
as opposed to a low-level. Here's a lot of money. Let's kill this.
Right. And you said a key word there, science. I'm an environmental scientist. Science is our friend. Let's not be afraid of science.
No,
Another interesting thing is you always hear Republicans talking about what government's too big. It seems like the discussion about only the size of government is distracting away from the larger issue. And the question should be: is government doing the job that we want it to do? And I feel like that's part of the problem with a lot of Americans is that we don't actually know what we want our government to be doing.
Right. Well, I had my actually had a question here. From here, we're going back to the direction we came, and we're making other similar stops to this. And then we have an event in Williamsport, and then an event in Selinsgrove in Snyder County. Because this district goes
All today?
all today. But I'm having fun.
But you only have a week.
Well, getting back to our goal. Our goal is to get as many write-in votes as possible. And also, if you have Republican friends, They could write me
They
in
can
also.
write you in also.
There's,
You don't have to be a registered Democrat.
May I ask what your thoughts on GMO and Roundup and Monsanto?
I'm an organic guy. First of all, again, in a free market society and making good decisions, we need information. So I think there should be labeling, and that's one of the Republicans were saying, "Oh, we don't need to regulate this. We don't need to put this on." I'm a big believer of consumer reports because the whole goal of being a good consumer in a free society is information. Information is good so that we could make our own decisions. Put it on the labels and then let people decide. And on the whole Roundup issue, when I was doing agricultural work years ago, I had questioned that because it's part of no-till farming. And no-till farming is good because it keeps the soil on the ground and not getting washed into creeks. That's the whole point of no-till. You're not going to disturb the soil. But I was 2 years out of college, and they were explaining no-till farming to me. And then when they got to the pesticide part, the herbicide part, I said, really? I had some question about that. And there's people at Bucknell who are doing research on bees, and so I have concerns on that. We really need to look at these these chemicals. Organophosphates is one, to see what the effects are. We just can't, deny it or ignore it. Again, that's where research is good, science is good, and let's science the science.
Very good.
Good to get somebody in Congress who lives in Salem.
Yeah, that's excellent.
I mean,
I thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Well,
We've got a lot of stuff here.
You know what? You guys, I need your help.
Just use my hand.
Remind me to have fun.
Before you
This is
leave,
great. Look at
You
this.
have to let Joe take a picture of you out in front
Right.
though.
but before you go,
And let me tell you one more thing about